Well, you see, I often wonder what you and I are really doing here, sitting together in the quiet of the night, whispering about a universe so vast that even our imagination trembles at its edges. And perhaps the question that gently rises first is this: if the cosmos is wide enough to cradle hundreds of billions of galaxies, then what does it mean truly to be a tiny human listening in the dark? Imagine looking up, at a sky that is not just a collection of stars, but a tapestry woven across distances so immense that light itself grows weary on the journey. And that's the thing. The moment we begin to think about size and age and mystery, we feel something shift inside us, as if the mind is stretching toward a horizon it can sense but not fully grasp. You know, in nights like these, I suppose we become travelers without moving, wandering through thoughts of ancient starlight, drifting along currents of time that behave less like a ticking clock and more like a landscape we're quietly passing through. So let me ask you this. If the universe is expanding, unfolding like a breath taken long before humans existed, then where exactly do we stand within that great exhale? And what stories lie waiting in the space between galaxies, in the dark where gravity whispers and matter hides? Before we go on, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. My aim here is simple: to help you drift off to sleep while exploring the wonders of science. Where are you on the map? Let me know where you are in the world and what time it is in the comments. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from all around the world. So let's continue. Well, you see, when we begin to wander into the vastness of the universe, something curious happens inside us. The mind slows, almost as if it instinctively knows it has stepped into a cathedral too immense to rush through. And, as we enter this first great landscape, the sheer size of the cosmos, you and I are confronted with numbers so extravagant, so unreasonable to our everyday sense of scale, that they begin to feel less like measurements and more like poems whispered from the edge of reality. Imagine standing in a quiet field at night. You look up at a sky that appears calm, familiar even, as though it belongs to the world we know. But beneath that familiar dome is a structure so large that the phrase observable universe stretches across more than 90 billion light years. And that's the thing. That number does not just shout distance. It hints at something stranger. It hints at the idea that the universe is not a box with walls, but a fabric that expands, stretches, and rearranges itself as time flows. Light, traveling at the fastest possible speed, still spends entire cosmic ages simply trying to cross one small corner of it. And so perhaps the first truth is this: the size of the universe is not meant to be understood in the way we understand the length of a road or the height of a building. It is something we approach with humility, the way one approaches an ocean whose far shore cannot be seen. You know, there is a quiet beauty in realizing that the light reaching your eyes tonight may have begun its journey millions of years ago. A photon, born from the raging heart of a distant star, has been racing tirelessly through space long before humans uttered a first word, long before Earth had continents arranged the way they are now, long before 2025 or any year we could name. That small beam of light becomes a kind of messenger, carrying news from a place so distant that even imagining the journey makes the mind ache a little. And I suppose that is part of the magic. Light is not just illumination, it is memory. Every starlit sky is a museum exhibit of the universe's past. When we speak of galaxies, well, we often imagine the Milky Way because it is home, it is familiar. A spiral of stars, dust, and gravitational currents that cradle our sun like a single grain of sand in a great cosmic desert. But of course, our galaxy is only one among, perhaps, hundreds of billions. Think of that for a moment. If every galaxy were a lantern glowing softly in the night, then the universe would be a boundless plain filled with scattered fires stretching beyond where sight can travel. And, each lantern is not merely a swirl of stars. It is a city of suns, each with its own planets, storms, atmospheres, and possibilities. Sometimes I wonder whether a single point of light you notice in the sky can truly be called a point. Because, well, in reality, that tiny glimmer may contain millions of suns. We are tricked, in a way, by distance. The universe compresses its enormity into pinpoints simply because our eyes were never built to handle such abundance. A star cluster light years wide becomes a grain of dust. A galaxy, home to worlds beyond counting, becomes a smudge you could hide behind the tip of your thumb. Perhaps that is why the cosmos feels like a riddle. It hides its size behind the illusion of simplicity. And then, I suppose we must talk about star systems. You see, our own system feels large enough to us. Planets whirl around a warm yellow star, held in place by its invisible grip. But many systems in the cosmos dwarf ours completely. There are solar systems so expansive that if we placed our sun within them, it would feel like a candle flickering in the shadow of a bonfire. Some stars are so massive that their radius alone could swallow hundreds of suns lined up side by side. And when a star of that size builds its world of orbiting planets, moons, debris fields, and storms, the resulting system becomes a kingdom, vast and wild. Perhaps the most humbling truth comes when we consider the distances between galaxies. We often imagine galaxies bumping elbows, brushing past one another as though space were crowded. But no, the universe maintains its own kind of solitude. Between galaxies are gulfs so large that they can barely be expressed through human language. If Earth were a marble and the sun a few steps away, the nearest galaxy would be farther than entire countries, even continents. It is a silence immeasurable, a separation so deep that light, traveling tirelessly for millions of years, struggles to cross it. And yet galaxies do interact. Gravity is patient. Time is generous. Over billions of years, even separated giants may drift toward one another, collide, merge, and form new stars from the chaos. And well, when we try to picture all of this, something inside us shifts. The numbers become too large, the distances too overwhelming. But strangely, instead of feeling lost, we often feel found. There is a sense of belonging in knowing that we live inside something so grand. It is as though the universe's immensity gives our smallness a kind of meaning. If the cosmos were tiny, perhaps our lives would feel ordinary. But because the universe is enormous beyond comprehension, our very existence becomes improbable, delicate, and therefore beautiful. You know, the more we explore these colossal scales, the more we realize that the universe is not empty. It is not a void. It is a stage where light performs across unimaginable distances, where galaxies drift like glowing islands, where time stretches and folds in ways that challenge everything we think we know. And I suppose that is the quiet secret hidden in these first facts. They are not simply measurements. They are invitations. Invitations to wonder. Invitations to pause. Invitations to see ourselves not as observers peering in from the outside, but as participants living within the cosmic story. And as we drift deeper into the Milky Way and beyond, a new question begins to surface, gentle but insistent. If the universe is this vast, then what does our own galaxy truly look like? How does this great spiral of stars curve and shimmer in the dark? What mysteries lie near its luminous heart, and what secrets wait in its outskirts where starlight grows thin? Well, perhaps it is time for us to wander there next, into the swirling arms of the galaxy we call home, where new stories are waiting in the dark, holding their breath just long enough for us to arrive. Well, you see, as we drift from the vast, open stretches of the universe into the soft, spiraling glow of our own galaxy, it feels as though we're stepping from a great cosmic desert into a city of light. The Milky Way rises before us, not as a flat picture or a diagram in a textbook, but as something alive, something breathing. And, if you tilt your imagination just slightly, you might sense the way its arms unfurl like long ribbons of starlight curling through the dark, with a grace that almost feels intentional. That shape, that great spiral, is the first quiet truth waiting for us here. Our galaxy is not a rigid wheel of stars, but a flowing swirl, a luminous silk drifting across the night. And that's the thing about spirals. They invite you inward. They draw your gaze toward the center, where the stars crowd more densely and time seems to press a little harder. But before we journey toward the core, perhaps we should linger in the gentle motion of our own sun. Because it's easy to forget that we are not standing still. Even now, at this very moment, we are being carried along on an orbit so enormous that our minds can barely follow it. It takes the sun more than 200 million years to complete a single trip around the Milky Way. 200 million years. That is longer than the age of many species that once walked the Earth. Longer than entire chapters of Earth's geological story. Our star has made only a handful of these great galactic circuits since the solar system was born. When the dinosaurs roamed, the sun had not yet completed even one. Well, the consequence of that slow, majestic orbit is humbling. It means that every time we look up at the sky, we are seeing from a position no creature before us has ever occupied. Every million years, every 100,000 even, we drift into a new region of the galaxy. The stars do not merely surround us, they carry us, sweep us, guide us through an ever-changing ocean of light. And as we turn our gaze toward the center of this ocean, something dark begins to come into view. Not dark in the sense of absence, but dark in the sense of power. At the heart of the Milky Way, hidden behind veils of dust and gas, there lies a supermassive black hole. Now, the idea of such a thing sitting quietly in the core of our galaxy feels almost mythic. A place where gravity folds so tightly that even light cannot escape. Yet perhaps surprisingly, it is not a monster thrashing about, swallowing everything. Instead, it is more like a conductor around which the entire galaxy orbits. Stars swirl near it like dancers tracing elegant arcs, moving at breathtaking speeds. And I suppose there is something almost poetic in that. The brightest region of the galaxy is shaped in part by something utterly invisible. It reminds us that the universe often hides its greatest influences in silence. But the Milky Way, for all its splendor, is not alone in the night. All around it, the universe is filled with galaxies, behaving in ways that sometimes mirror our own and sometimes defy every expectation. You see, many galaxies are not drifting peacefully. They are rushing toward each other, pulled by gravity across unimaginable gulfs. In the deep cosmic dark, entire star cities collide. When they meet, their shapes warp and twist, their arms shred into long tidal streams. Stars are born from the turbulence. Others are flung into lonely orbits far from any home. Yet, despite the violence, these collisions are not endings. They are transformations. Two galaxies merge not into ruin, but into something new, something larger and often more luminous than either was before. And well, as we drift through this gallery of cosmic forms, we begin to notice that not all galaxies share that familiar spiral grace. Some look like smudges, soft and indistinct, as though painted by a trembling hand. Others are spheres without texture, while still others are chaotic, irregular shapes that almost seem unfinished. The universe, you see, does not insist on symmetry. It allows galaxies to evolve in ways shaped by chance, a passing neighbor, a small collision long ago, a river of dark matter pulling subtly on one side. And that brings us to another quiet truth, one that feels almost mystical when you let it settle in your mind. Some galaxies are composed almost entirely of dark matter. Imagine that. An entire galactic structure, vast and heavy, built mostly of something we cannot see and do not yet understand. These galaxies hold themselves together not through the glow of stars, but through the invisible weight of an unknown substance. It is like discovering that a great cathedral stands not on stone but on shadows, and yet the shadows are strong enough to hold worlds in place. When I think about these dark, matter-dominated galaxies, I can't help but feel a gentle sense of awe. Because perhaps they are reminders that the universe is not obligated to reveal all its secrets at once. It keeps parts of itself veiled, not out of cruelty, but out of a kind of cosmic patience, as if waiting for us to grow curious enough to look deeper. And in the vast quiet where these galaxies drift, their shapes unsure, their stars sparse, we glimpse another lesson. That order is not the default state of the cosmos. Chaos can be beautiful too, and in fact many structures owe their existence to it. As we drift further outward, beyond the arms of the Milky Way, and into the deeper currents of intergalactic space, the galaxies become like lanterns scattered on a dark sea. Some glow fiercely, others fade. Some move with purpose, others wobble, reshaped by neighbors we cannot see. The further we go, the more the universe feels like an ever-changing tapestry, woven not just of stars, but of time, gravity, collisions, and mystery. And perhaps if you listen closely, there is something almost human in this great cosmic dance. Galaxies meet, merge, separate, change, evolve. They are shaped by the forces around them, yet they continue forward, carrying their stars and their histories. It makes me wonder whether our own journeys are that different. We too are shaped by encounters, by forces we cannot see. We too drift through a landscape larger than we can comprehend. Well, you see, as we glide through these celestial shapes, spirals and ellipses and chaotic clouds of stars, something begins to stir just beyond the edges of our view. It is small at first, almost easy to overlook, a point of light, then another, and suddenly the focus shifts. Because while galaxies may hold the grand architecture of the cosmos, there is another realm waiting for us, a realm of worlds, of strange and distant planets, exotic atmospheres, chemical oceans, winds that scream faster than sound, moons hiding seas beneath their icy crusts, diamonds raining in the dark, a realm where the familiar laws of planetary life twist into surprising and wondrous forms. And I suppose this is where our curiosity naturally pulls us next, away from the sprawling arms of the Milky Way and into the intimate stories of planets themselves, each one a world with its own secrets, waiting quietly in the starlit dark for us to notice. Well, you see, as we drift away from the great sweeping arms of the Milky Way and lean closer to the quiet glow of individual stars, something almost tender begins to happen. The scale shrinks. The cosmos, which just moments ago felt like an ocean of galaxies, now narrows into the intimate realm of planets, worlds, places where matter cools and condenses, where atmospheres rise and storms howl, where strange geologies shape the surface into landscapes no human foot has ever touched. And, in this narrowing of focus, there is a feeling almost like stepping from a grand hall into a private room. The universe becomes personal again. It begins to whisper. And perhaps the first of these whispers comes from a world so near, and yet so peculiar that it feels like a cosmic riddle. Venus, glowing beautifully in our twilight skies, behaving in a way that defies instinct. You see, it spins backward. While most planets in our solar system turn the way a spinning coin naturally does, Venus rotates in the opposite direction, as though time itself caught its surface and gently rewound it. Imagine living there, watching the sun rise in the west and set in the east, long days stretching for months, nights longer still. And that's the thing. Venus reminds us that planetary motion is not bound to our expectations. Worlds can twist, lean, topple, and reorient, sculpted by collisions long forgotten. The cosmos keeps its scars, but it hides their stories in the way planets turn. Then, drifting farther outward, we arrive at a world that feels strangely familiar, almost like a sibling to Earth, yet carved by forces far more dramatic. Mars, dusty and cold, wearing its history openly on its surface. You know, one cannot speak of Mars without imagining Olympus Mons, the tallest volcano in the solar system. It rises 3 times higher than Mount Everest. 3 times. a mountain so vast that if you stood at its base, the summit would blend into the horizon, indistinguishable from the curve of the planet itself. Perhaps such enormity is the natural result of a world lacking plate tectonics. Volcanoes there do not drift across shifting crusts. They stay rooted, building and building over millions of years. Mars shows us what can grow when a world stands still, but then the cosmos nudges us toward something truly colossal, a world so immense it bends our sense of proportion. Jupiter, the giant among giants, capable of swallowing more than 1,000 Earths within its volume. And, even that comparison barely conveys its presence. Jupiter is not simply big, it is dynamic, storm-racked, swirling with bands of gas that churn like living tapestries. The Great Red Spot, a storm older than any human civilization, spins with a persistence that feels almost mythic. The more you dwell on Jupiter, the more it becomes clear. Size in the universe is not merely a statistic, it is a personality. Jupiter's gravity shapes the fates of other worlds. It shepherds asteroids. It protects and threatens in equal measure. In a sense, Jupiter is the solar system's guardian and its disruptor. And then, almost gently, the universe shows us Saturn. If Jupiter is the king, Saturn is the poet. Light, delicate, ringed with arcs of ice that glimmer like glass dust. And here is a fact that feels like a piece of cosmic whimsy. Saturn could float. If you found an ocean vast enough and deep enough, Saturn's average density is so low that it would drift upon the surface like a shimmering lantern. Of course, such an ocean does not exist, but the idea is charming. It reminds us that worlds have personalities not only in their storms and mountains, but in their physics. Saturn, with its impossible elegance, seems to exist to make the universe a little more beautiful. But this beauty does not soften the wildness waiting farther out. Neptune, distant, frigid, wrapped in winds so fierce they surpass the speed of sound. Well, imagine that. A world where the atmosphere races itself, where storms tear across the surface at unimaginable velocities. The deep blues of Neptune are not quiet. They are turbulent, carved by invisible forces that generate the fastest winds in the solar system. And I suppose there is a strange comfort in that. Even in the coldest places, movement persists. Motion is the universe's way of reminding us that nothing, not even air, truly rests. Yet perhaps the most astonishing whispers come from worlds we have only just begun to understand. Worlds made not of rock or gas, but of diamond. Yes, entire planets, compressed by unimaginable pressures, formed from carbon hardened into crystalline landscapes. Imagine rainstorms of diamond fragments tinkling softly onto black, superheated surfaces. Imagine mountains made from the same glittering material. These are not metaphors. These are real possibilities scattered throughout the galaxy. And they remind us, gently but firmly, that the universe is endlessly inventive. It does not repeat itself if it can help it. It experiments. It improvises. And you know, when you follow these worlds from the familiar glow of Venus to the distant shimmer of diamond planets, something becomes clear. Planets are not merely objects. They are stories. Each one tells a tale of physics and accident, of collisions and chemical dances, of atmospheres born and lost. They are expressions of cosmic creativity, and observing them, even from afar, makes the universe feel strangely welcoming. If galaxies overwhelm us with their scale, planets draw us back in with their intimacy. Worlds are places, after all. Places where conditions might someday allow life to bloom, where some form of consciousness might look up into its own sky and ask the same questions we ask. Perhaps that is why these strange planets leave such a lasting impression. They make us wonder not only about what is possible elsewhere, but what is possible here. And, as we drift through these planetary stories, we begin to sense another presence waiting just beyond our current horizon. Something older, brighter, and more fundamental. Because if planets are shaped by the stars they orbit, then understanding the stars themselves becomes the next natural step in our journey. Their light paints the cosmos. Their deaths reshape it. Their births ignite clouds of dust into brilliance. And well, as we prepare to lift our gaze from these exotic worlds and look toward the brilliant furnaces that give them life, a new chapter begins to glow faintly at the edge of our thoughts, inviting us closer. Well, you see, as soon as we leave behind the strange and shimmering worlds of distant planets, the universe seems to draw a slow, deliberate breath. It invites us to look not at the places orbiting the stars, but at the stars themselves. And there is something deeply humbling about that shift in focus, because planets, for all their beauty and personality, are merely the children of starlight, shaped and held by the fires that birthed them. To truly understand the cosmos, we have to look toward those fires. We have to listen to what the stars are saying. And perhaps the first whisper comes from the familiar glow of our own sun. You know, we see it rise each morning, warm and steady, almost ordinary in its reliability. But the truth is far from ordinary. The light that touches your face at dawn has traveled more than 8 minutes through space to reach you. 8 minutes drifting across 93 million miles, weaving its way through the void before gently brushing the surface of Earth. And that's the thing. Every ray of sunlight is a survivor. It was born deep within the sun's core, long before it escaped outward, spending thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of years bouncing from particle to particle inside that dense, fiery interior before it finally broke free and began its straight 8-minute journey toward us. The sunlight of this very moment carries the memory of an ancient interior world. And then, of course, there is the sun's weight. It holds more than 99% of the entire mass of the solar system. Imagine that. Every planet, every moon, every comet, every dusty grain drifting between orbits combined still cannot rival the sun's overwhelming presence. Its gravity choreographs everything. It is the anchor that shapes our seasons, our tides, even the fragile conditions that allow life on Earth to exist. Without the sun's mass, there would be no earthly orbit, no warmth, no oceans, no breath. In that sense, the sun is not only a star, it is a parent, steady, relentless, essential. But when we lift our gaze beyond our own star, something astonishing becomes clear. The sun is modest. In the cosmic family of stars, it is neither giant nor dwarf, neither extremity nor oddity. There are stars hundreds of times larger, glowing like titans in the dark. Some are swollen so immensely that if they replaced our sun, they would engulf the orbit of Earth, perhaps even Mars. These giants burn fiercely, living brilliant but tragically short lives. Their mass is both their gift and their downfall. The more massive the star, the faster it exhausts itself. It is a strange kind of cosmic irony. The brightest lights fade the quickest. And when they fade, well, the universe changes shape. A dying, massive star can explode into a supernova, a burst of light so powerful it briefly outshines entire galaxies. Think about that, just for a moment. A single star, for a heartbeat in cosmic time, becoming brighter than billions of others combined. The explosion hurls heavy elements into space, scattering iron, gold, carbon, oxygen, the very ingredients of life. You and I, sitting here in the quiet of this moment, are made of atoms forged long ago in the deaths of ancient stars. Perhaps that is why these stellar explosions feel so emotional, so strangely personal. They are our great-grandparents in a way. We carry their remnants within us. But not all stars burn with fire. Some are so cold, so faint, that their surfaces fall below the freezing point of earthly ice. Imagine that. A star colder than the coldest winter known to our world. These dim objects challenge our instinctive idea of what a star should be. We picture heat, brightness, energy. Yet the cosmos, ever fond of exceptions, allows stars that glow like dying embers, barely warming the space around them. They drift quietly, patient and nearly invisible, lighting the void with a whisper rather than a shout. And if cold stars surprise us, then the hottest ones shock us. There are stars whose temperatures soar so high that metals placed near them would vaporize instantly. These stellar furnaces burn in blues and whites so intense they seem almost unreal. Their ultraviolet light shapes the gas clouds around them, carving cavities and igniting nebulae into dramatic landscapes of color. They are sculptors, artists working in plasma and radiation, creating beauty by their very existence. You know, when you look across the spectrum of stars from cold, faint dwarfs to massive giants burning themselves apart, a quiet truth emerges. Stars are not simply sources of light. They are engines of transformation. They turn simple hydrogen into complex elements. They recycle matter through death and rebirth. They sculpt galaxies. They define time on cosmic scales. Stars are, in a very real sense, the heartbeat of the universe. And perhaps, if you listen carefully, they remind us of something about ourselves. That cycles of creation and destruction are natural. That brilliance often comes with cost. That warmth can come from places we least expect. And that the universe, in its endless variety, has room for all kinds of lights. Well, as we linger in this radiant world of stars, another thought gently rises into view. If stars shape time and space through their mass and energy, then the next step is to understand the very fabric in which all this motion occurs. Space is not empty. Time is not constant. And the universe, beneath its shimmering surface, behaves in ways stranger and more profound than intuition allows. And so, as the starlight around us begins to soften, we find ourselves drifting naturally toward the next mystery, where time slows, space bends, and gravity becomes not just a force, but a storyteller waiting patiently for us to listen. Well, you see, as we drift away from the blazing furnaces of the stars, something quieter rises to meet us. It is not a place, not a planet, not even a visible structure. It is the fabric itself, space, time, the two great threads from which everything else is woven. And, the moment we turn our attention to them, the universe seems to whisper differently, less like a storyteller describing distant worlds, and more like a philosopher leaning in to share a secret that has waited billions of years for someone to listen. And that's the thing. The deeper we look into the cosmos, the more we realize that the universe isn't merely populated with strange objects. It behaves in strange ways, subtly, gracefully, almost mischievously, as though the rules that govern reality are invitations to wonder rather than rigid laws. Perhaps we begin with something that seems simple at first. Time. We like to think of it as steady, dependable, ticking forward at the same pace for everyone, everywhere. But well, the universe smiles at our certainty, because time itself stretches and slows in the presence of mass. The greater the mass, the deeper the gravitational well, the slower time flows. It is not a metaphor. It's measurable, tested, undeniable. A clock placed near a massive object really does run more slowly than a clock far from it. Even here on Earth, the difference between time at sea level and time on a mountaintop is real. Tiny, yes, but real. We age ever so slightly faster on the mountain than in the valley. You know, when you let that settle into your mind, really settle, it begins to reshape the way you sense your own existence. Time is not a fixed river. It is a landscape. Hills and valleys of moments, each flowing differently depending on where you stand. And, suddenly the universe feels more alive, more flexible, more intimate. It listens to mass. It responds to proximity. It curves around gravity's embrace. And if time can stretch, space itself can bend. Not figuratively, literally. Massive bodies warp the space around them, creating curves and dips, the way a heavy ball stretches a fabric sheet. Planets move not because invisible forces shove them, but because they follow the straightest possible path through curved space. Imagine walking across a rolling landscape. Your steps feel straight to you, even as the ground gently rises and falls beneath your feet. That's how Earth moves around the sun. Not pulled, but guided by the geometry of the universe. And I suppose there is something humbling in that. The cosmos is not a machine of gears and springs, but a kind of cosmic architecture where motion is shaped by the very stage it plays upon. But, well, if space can bend and time can stretch, then what happens near something unimaginably dense? Something so massive, so compact that space-time curves into a shape almost beyond comprehension? Near a black hole, time itself slows nearly to a halt. A falling observer could watch the rest of the universe age while they remain suspended in a moment. Clocks lose meaning there. Seconds disobey their own structure. The universe becomes strange and perhaps a little haunting. Yet this strangeness isn't distant. It's woven into the very mathematics that describes our reality. It tells us, gently but firmly, that time is not universal. It is personal. It is local. It depends on where and how you exist. And still the universe has more to say, because there is another way to play with time: speed. Move fast enough, close to the speed of light, and time slows for you. Not because of gravity, but because motion itself reshapes your experience of reality. A traveler racing through space would age more slowly than someone who stayed behind. They could return from a journey to find that decades had passed for others, while only months passed for them. You see, the future is reachable, not in the fairy tale sense, but in the physical, mathematical, measurable sense. You can go there by moving swiftly enough, following a path where time dilates like soft clay. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many futures will exist that no one has lived yet? How many decades, centuries, millennia lie open to the laws of motion, waiting for someone bold enough to reach them? And in all this bending and stretching, the question naturally arises: where is the center of it all? Surely, with galaxies rushing apart and space expanding, there must be some central point, some origin from which everything is moving outward. But the universe, in its quiet way, offers a gentle correction. There is no center. Every point in space sees every other point drifting away. Expansion is not a wave spreading from a stone dropped in water. It is the water itself expanding. Space is growing everywhere at once. You stand at the center of the universe. So does someone on a distant planet orbiting a distant star. So does every galaxy drifting through the cosmic sea. And, perhaps that's one of the most comforting truths the cosmos gives us. In a universe without a center, everything is central. Everything holds equal weight in the grand design. But if there is no universal center in space, then there is also no universal clock in time. The universe does not keep a single rhythm. Time flows differently in different places, shaped by gravity, shaped by motion, shaped by the geometry of space-time itself. Imagine a cosmic symphony where each instrument plays at its own pace, yet somehow the music still works. That is the universe, a dance without a single tempo. And, once you accept that time is not absolute, the world becomes softer, more fluid. You begin to realize that the past and future are not rigid walls, but flexible boundaries, that even the present is not shared uniformly across the cosmos. At any given moment, two distant galaxies do not agree on what now means. Their clocks, shaped by their environments, are mismatched, yet both remain real, both remain true. And well, this leads us to one of the gentlest but most profound ideas in physics. Time is not something that happens everywhere at once. It is a tapestry of local experiences, a mosaic of countless ticking hearts scattered through space. Which makes me wonder, perhaps you do too, if time is so malleable, so susceptible to the presence of mass and motion, what does that say about our own brief lives? We measure our days in hours, our years in cycles of Earth around the sun. But in the great architecture of space-time, our lives are small eddies swirling in a vast cosmic river. And yet, in that smallness, there is beauty. Because we experience time in the one way the universe can never standardize, personally, intimately. Everything around us, from the pull of the earth beneath our feet to the speed at which we move, shapes the seconds we perceive. And perhaps, Knowing that time can be stretched, bent, slowed, and reshaped, we begin to see that the universe is far more flexible than we once believed. Reality itself becomes a landscape of possibilities. Well, as the last echoes of this realization settle around us, something darker and deeper begins to stir at the edge of our path. We have spoken of time slowing near massive objects, of space bending under gravity's influence, of clocks disagreeing across the cosmos. But what happens when mass becomes so extreme, so concentrated, that space-time folds into a shadow from which not even light can return? We begin to sense the presence of black holes, silent, powerful, enigmatic, and I suppose there is no avoiding them now. They pull at our curiosity the same way they pull at starlight, inviting us into the next chapter of our cosmic journey, a chapter where gravity becomes a devouring presence, where time loses all meaning, and where the universe reveals some of its most astonishing and unsettling truths. Well, you see, as we move from the bending of space-time into the deeper shadows of the cosmos, the universe begins to change its tone. It grows quieter, heavier, as though inviting us to step softly. Because ahead of us lies a region where gravity gathers itself into something almost mythic, a place where the fabric of reality folds in on itself. And, I suppose there's no other way to say it than this. We are approaching black holes, not as distant monsters or abstract equations, but as real, physical presences, silent, patient, relentless. And that's the thing. Black holes are so often imagined as bottomless pits, hungry voids tearing through space, but the truth is subtler and far more beautiful. They are not holes, not empty, not absences. A black hole is matter, collapsed, compressed, condensed into a point of such extraordinary density that the rules we rely on, distance, time, even causality, begin to lose their familiar shapes. A star that once blazed with brilliance can die in such a way that its mass is crushed into something smaller than imagination should allow. The matter doesn't disappear. It becomes gravity taking physical form. And if we take a moment to listen, there is something strangely poignant about that transformation. A star that once created light now becomes a place where light cannot escape. It is as though the universe has whispered the life story of a sun backward. But well, not all black holes come from dying stars. Some may be tiny, so tiny in fact that their mass is compressed into a region the size of an atom. Imagine that, an object with the gravitational strength of a mountain sitting within a space smaller than a grain of dust. These hypothetical miniature black holes may have formed in the very earliest moments of the universe, when everything was compressed and chaotic, and the rules we now take for granted were still soft, still forming. If they exist, and some theories whisper that they do, they would drift through space unnoticed, silent pearls of collapsed matter, each one a secret from the dawn of time. But what truly captures the imagination is what black holes do. They do not roam the cosmos, swallowing everything recklessly. Instead, they influence their surroundings like heavy anchors in the sea of space-time. Stars can orbit them gracefully, spiraling in slow, elegant arcs. Matter can fall toward them and heat up, releasing light so intense it can outshine an entire galaxy. Or, in rare moments, a star can wander too close. The tidal forces stretch it, tear it apart, scatter its gases into swirling ribbons that glow as they fall inward. A single star, undone in the gravity of something it cannot see. You see, when a black hole eats a star, it's not a gulp. It's a slow cosmic unspooling, a quiet unraveling, and the universe watches, illuminated by the light of matter screaming inward toward its own dissolution. And yet, strangely enough, we can see black holes. Not directly, of course. They do not give off light. But their presence is written into their surroundings the way a stone creates ripples in a pond. Stars whip around, something invisible at astonishing speeds. Gas swirls into disks hotter than the surfaces of stars. Space itself stretches into a funnel shape that bends the path of light, distorting the images of objects behind it. This bending, this gravitational lensing, is the universe's way of sketching the outline of the unseen. It is a signature, unmistakable, telling us that something massive and invisible stands between us and the light. But perhaps the most surprising whisper about black holes is this: they are not eternal. They can evaporate. Slowly, over unimaginable lengths of time, they leak energy in the form of radiation. Hawking radiation, we call it now, though the name itself is not nearly as astonishing as the idea. A black hole, the very symbol of inescapable gravity, emits energy, loses mass, and one day, far beyond the reach of our species, our planet, perhaps even our galaxy, it dissolves into a final release of radiation, leaving behind only memory in the cosmic background. Imagine that. Even the darkest things in the universe fade. And when you let that truth settle, a certain softness enters the picture. Black holes, for all their ferocity, are not predators. They are temporary configurations of matter and gravity. They are part of the life cycle of the cosmos. They are born, they exist, they influence, and eventually they vanish. Well, yet there is one property of black holes that remains unmatched in its ability to stir the imagination. Nothing that crosses the event horizon can escape, not even light. The event horizon is the boundary of no return, the place where escape velocity surpasses the speed of light. But it is also something stranger, a surface of frozen time. To an outside observer, anything falling into a black hole appears to slow down, dim, and freeze at the edge, never quite crossing. The falling object sees itself plunge inward, but the universe outside watches it linger eternally at the brink. It is a boundary not just in space, but in time. And once you start thinking of black holes in this way, objects where time itself distorts so dramatically, you begin to sense that they are windows. Not to other universes, perhaps, though some theories suggest such possibilities, but to a deeper understanding of the rules that govern everything. Black holes teach us that space and time can fold beyond our intuition. That matter can compress beyond imagination. That gravity is not merely a force, but a sculptor of the stage where all cosmic stories unfold. And maybe that is why they feel so mysterious. They are reminders that the universe keeps secrets, that not everything is meant to be understood at once, that some truths require patience measured not in years, but in eras. As we drift away from these dark titans, you might feel a subtle shift, like stepping back into the light after wandering through a shadowed forest. Because beyond the gravitational abyss lies another question, one that glimmers softly with possibility. If black holes shape galaxies, swallow stars, bend time, and sculpt space, then what might they teach us about life, about the environments where life might arise, about the possibilities of existence beyond our world? And, perhaps the next place to look is not into the darkness, but into the silent hope carried by distant planets, icy moons, hidden oceans, and the faint chemical traces drifting through cosmic winds. Life, somewhere out there, might already be listening. And so the path leads us gently onward, toward the search for worlds like our own, and the possibility that we are not alone in the vastness of the night. Well, you see, after wandering through the shadowed realms of black holes, those dense, silent sculptors of space-time, the universe seems to take a softer breath. The darkness loosens its grip, and something more delicate begins to glow at the edges of our curiosity. It is not the fierce light of stars, nor the crushing gravity of collapsed suns. It is a quieter possibility, a question whispered across billions of worlds, a gentle, persistent wondering. Are we alone? And, perhaps it's only natural that after contemplating the extremes of physics, we turn our attention to the fragile miracle of life. Because the universe, vast and ancient, cannot help but stir that longing in us, the desire to find a reflection, a companion, a sign that consciousness is not confined to this one pale world orbiting an ordinary star. That's the thing. The more we learn about the cosmos, the more this question grows. Not smaller, but larger, more urgent, more intimate. You see, astronomers now believe there are billions of planets that resemble Earth. Billions. Not metaphorically, not poetically, literally billions of rocky worlds orbiting stars in stable, temperate zones where liquid water might pool and chemistry might awaken. If each of those worlds is a canvas, then the universe is an art gallery overflowing with possibility. It makes you wonder how many of them right now are covered in forests of alien shapes, or oceans stirred by unfamiliar tides, or atmospheres painted with colors no human eye has ever seen. And well, water, simple, clear, unassuming, seems to be everywhere. Not just on Earth, not just in frozen comets or icy rings, but on countless planets and moons across the galaxy. Some worlds cradle water vapor in their skies. Some hide liquid oceans beneath crusts of rock. Some, like those icy moons orbiting the giant planets, guard vast, dark seas beneath frozen exteriors. Seas warmed not by sunlight, but by tidal forces kneading their interiors like dough, creating warmth where there should be none. You know, when you consider that, it becomes difficult not to feel a strange stirring of hope. Life, if it ever flicked into existence on Earth, might flicker elsewhere too, because the ingredients are not rare, the conditions are not unique. The universe seems almost eager to create environments where life could begin. And then there are the moons. Some of them, small and unassuming from afar, turn out to be reservoirs of astonishing potential. Hidden beneath the ice of Europa or Enceladus, there are oceans deeper than Earth's own, warmed from below, enriched by minerals, stirred by currents in perpetual darkness. If life could exist there, and perhaps it could, it would be a form untouched by sunlight. A biology born of heat and chemistry alone. Life that glows with its own bioluminescent light, drifting through alien waters in silence. And the idea that life might thrive in such dark oceans challenges our earthbound assumptions. It reminds us that the universe is not limited to our imagination, that life does not require landscapes bathed in daylight or atmospheres rich with oxygen. It may arise wherever complexity has room to unfold, but the possibility doesn't end there. Some scientists wonder, quietly, cautiously, whether tiny organisms could survive in space itself, shielded within meteorites, frozen in comets, riding the solar wind like microscopic travelers. If life can endure the extremes on Earth, boiling water, crushing pressure, searing radiation, then perhaps it can cling to existence in the vacuum between stars. Perhaps entire ecosystems drift silently through space, waiting to seed new worlds. And then there are the signals. Strange, fleeting radio bursts, patterns that flicker and fade, pulses that defy easy explanation. Many of them, of course, come from natural phenomena, magnetars, quasars, cosmic storms, but some are puzzling enough that they provoke a moment of hesitation, a quiet pause, a question. What if? The universe speaks constantly through noise and radiation, but every once in a while a sound emerges that feels almost intentional. Not proof, of course. Not yet. But a hint that the cosmos might be more talkative than we think. And I suppose that's part of the cosmic romance. The search is not merely scientific. It's emotional. It taps into an ache older than civilization, the longing to know whether consciousness is a singular miracle or a common spark scattered through the galaxy. And well, Mars, our dry, rusted neighbor, remains one of our closest hopes. Its barren landscapes hold clues of flowing rivers long vanished, of lakes frozen in time, of minerals shaped in the presence of water. Rovers crawl across its surface like slow, patient detectives searching for subtle signatures of ancient life. Organic molecules, patterns in the soil, traces of methane rising and falling with the seasons. Every discovery feels like a footstep leading us toward a truth the planet is not yet ready to reveal. You know, when future explorers travel there, perhaps in the era beyond 2025. And dig deeper, drill farther, sift through layers untouched for millions of years. They may find fossils, microbial, tiny, but undeniable. And that would change everything. It would tell us that life is not a rare event, but a natural outcome of cosmic chemistry. And if life arose twice within the same solar system, once on Earth, once on Mars, then surely it must arise everywhere. But even without proof, the search itself has value. It connects us to the universe in a way few scientific pursuits can. When we look for life, we are not just studying biology. We are studying ourselves, our hopes, our fears, our longing for connection in a cosmos so vast and quiet that it sometimes feels indifferent. Yet perhaps it isn't indifferent at all. Perhaps the universe is humming with life, past or present, simple or complex, scattered across billions of worlds like seeds waiting for discovery. Maybe civilizations have risen and fallen long before Earth cooled. Maybe others are rising now, looking at their own skies with the same wonder, asking the same questions, wondering whether they too are alone. And well, even if life elsewhere is microbial, microscopic, modest, it is still a revelation. A single alien microbe would topple centuries of assumptions. It would tell us that biology is not a fragile miracle, but a cosmic inevitability. And if, somewhere beyond the reach of our telescopes, intelligence has blossomed, if minds have awakened, built tools, crafted stories, asked questions, then perhaps consciousness is not an earthly trait, but a universal phenomenon seeking to understand itself. You see, the search for life is as much about philosophy as it is about science. It reminds us that we are not separate from the cosmos, but expressions of it. We are stardust that learn to ask questions, atoms that learn to wonder. And in that sense, whether or not we find extraterrestrial life, the journey itself enriches us. But as this wondering grows, it leads naturally to another mystery, one hiding in the shadows, influencing everything yet revealing almost nothing. Because to understand life in the universe, we must also understand the universe's invisible scaffolding, the unseen forces that hold galaxies together, the mysterious energy that stretches space apart, the vast silent majority of the cosmos. And so, as our curiosity drifts from the possibility of life to the nature of existence itself, the next question begins to glow softly ahead of us, like a lantern in the dark. What is the universe made of if not the things we can see? Well, you see, once we begin asking what the universe is really made of, after drifting through worlds that might cradle life, after wandering among stars and black holes in the slow bending of time itself, we find the cosmos gently clearing its throat, as if preparing to reveal something far more unsettling, something quieter, darker, and stranger than anything we have touched so far. And, perhaps this is the moment when the universe leans in and whispers, "Most of what exists is invisible to you." And that's the thing. Everything we have talked about up to this point, the stars, the planets, the glowing nebulae, the galaxies drifting like lanterns across the void, all of it is only a tiny fraction of what fills the cosmos. A sliver, a luminous dusting on the surface of something much larger and much more mysterious. Because most of the universe is made not of matter we can see, but matter we cannot detect directly at all. Dark matter, we call it, though the name is more of an admission than an explanation. It does not shine. It does not reflect. It does not absorb light. It is invisible in every sense except for one, its gravity. And, if gravity is the universe's handwriting, then dark matter has written entire chapters. It surrounds galaxies in vast halos, holding them together with a force strong enough to prevent their stars from simply flying apart. Without it, the Milky Way would unravel like a loose coil of silk. Without it, galaxies would never have formed in the first place. Imagine that. The structures we marvel at, the starlit spirals we paint in our minds, owe their existence to something we cannot see. A vast invisible skeleton upon which the luminous universe is draped. When astronomers first noticed galaxies spinning too fast for their visible mass, they must have felt that familiar scientific unease, that quiet tug that says reality is not behaving as expected. It was as though the universe itself whispered, "Look deeper." And when they looked, they found that something unseen was adding weight, sculpting motion, shaping the cosmos from the shadows. And well, the deeper we look, the stranger it gets. We do not know what dark matter is. Not yet. We know only what it does, not what it's made of. It interacts with gravity, yes, but seems indifferent to everything else. Light, heat, magnetism, even the atomic forces that build the elements of our world. In a universe where everything seems deeply interconnected, dark matter is the quiet outsider, influencing everything while revealing nothing of itself. It is like a ghost at the cosmic banquet, its presence undeniable, its form unreadable. And as if that mystery weren't enough, there is something even more perplexing, something that sits not in the shadows, but in the very fabric of space itself. Dark energy, a force not pulling things together but pushing them apart. It is the reason galaxies are drifting away from one another faster and faster, the reason the universe is expanding not gently, but accelerating, as though space is stretching with increasing enthusiasm. Imagine that. Gravity pulls inward, dark energy pushes outward, two cosmic impulses in constant dialogue, one shaping stars and galaxies, the other shaping the fate of the universe itself. Dark energy is everywhere, subtly woven into the vacuum of space. It doesn't behave like matter. It doesn't clump, doesn't gather, doesn't form structures. It simply pushes, like a breath that never ends, expanding the cosmic fabric in every direction at once. And I suppose if we step back and listen closely, there is something deeply philosophical here. The universe is not only growing, it is accelerating into its own future. Space is not a quiet backdrop, but a restless participant. And we, tiny creatures made of ordinary matter, are floating in a cosmos where the ordinary is the exception, not the rule. And yet, for all these grand mysteries, dark matter and dark energy remain elusive. We cannot bottle them, touch them, or lay them on a laboratory table. We infer them from motion, from the expansion of space, from the gravitational pull that should not exist but does. Dark matter curves the paths of stars. Dark energy curves the trajectory of the cosmos itself. They are the invisible storytellers guiding everything we see. Sometimes I imagine the universe as a painting. The bright stars are the brush strokes, the planets are the details, the galaxies are the sweeping lines of composition. But the frame, the structure that holds it all, the tension that shapes the canvas, is made of dark matter. And the hand pushing that canvas outward, stretching it gently but insistently from all sides, is dark energy. Without them, the painting would collapse, or never form, or never expand. And well, if we consider that most of the universe is invisible, it changes something inside us. It humbles us, reminds us that our senses capture only a thin layer of truth, that the cosmos is larger than our intuition, stranger than our imagination, and more complex than our current laws of physics can fully describe. Perhaps in 2025, or in centuries to come, we will finally decode the nature of these dark components. Or perhaps they will remain mysteries, teaching us that some truths are meant to guide us rather than be grasped. But there is something else dark matter teaches us if we allow it. It suggests that the universe is held together not by what is obvious, but by what is hidden, that the unseen may be more powerful than the seen. And maybe, in a quiet, metaphorical way, that applies to our own lives too. The invisible choices, the quiet influences, the things we do not notice may shape our paths more than the moments we do. And as we drift through this invisible realm, sensing the gravitational echoes of things we cannot name, a new awareness rises. The universe is not only filled with mysteries, it is actively sculpted by them. And, Once we accept that, the cosmos becomes even more beautiful. Not a problem to solve, but a poem to interpret. And yet, even as these unseen forces shape the large-scale structure of everything, the universe still has more stories to tell. Stories of sudden flashes, ancient radiation, waves rippling through space-time, cosmic fossils drifting along elliptical orbits, fiery collisions that reshape planetary systems. Because after contemplating the invisible, the dark skeleton, and the expanding breath, the next chapter beckons us toward the dramatic, the fleeting, the events that punctuate cosmic time like exclamation marks. And so we move forward, gently, into a realm of phenomena, where the universe reveals itself not through stillness, but through bursts, waves, and ancient remnants that whisper of creation itself. Well, you see, once we emerge from the invisible realms of dark matter and the quiet, expanding breath of dark energy, the universe feels as if it is ready, almost eager, to show us its fireworks. After so much subtlety, so much unseen architecture, suddenly the cosmos bursts into motion again. Flickers, flashes, echoes, strange signals that ripple through the fabric of reality itself. And, it's almost like walking from a silent cathedral into a storm-lit sky where every bolt of lightning is a message from the beginning of time. Because the universe, in all its vastness, is not still. It erupts, pulses, cracks open its ancient memories. It leaves trails, fossils, scars, moments of violent transformation scattered across eternity. These cosmic events are not just spectacles. They are chapters of a very old story, written in bursts of energy and drifting debris. And perhaps the first of these strange cosmic signatures we should stop and linger on is something so brief, so fleeting, that if you blinked at the wrong time, you'd miss it entirely. There are explosions out there, gamma-ray bursts, that last only thousandths of a second. Think about that. A fraction so small it barely counts as a moment, yet in that tiny sliver, more energy can be released than the sun emits in its entire lifetime. It's as though the universe occasionally snaps its fingers, and in that snap, a light brighter than galaxies erupts into being. And that's the thing. Events so brief remind us that time, especially cosmic time, is deceptive. A thousandth of a second for us is practically nothing. But for the cosmos, it can be the punctuation mark at the end of a star's life. A collapsing core, a merging pair of neutron stars, a catastrophic transformation that compresses entire suns into a radiant instant. These events challenge us to listen more carefully, to catch the messages hidden in flashes that barely exist long enough to be witnessed. But the universe also carries older messages, ones far more patient. And if you know how to tune your instruments, you can still hear the echo of creation itself. Radiation left over from the birth of the cosmos, drifting gently through space, like soft static. The cosmic microwave background. This faint glow fills every direction, a kind of afterimage from a time when the universe was only a few 100,000 years old, still glowing from its own forming heat. You know, in a way, it is the universe's first photograph, a portrait of itself as an infant, a reminder that everything we see now, the galaxies, the worlds, even the atoms in our bodies, came from a time when the universe was hot, dense, and filled with potential. And, whenever I think about that glow still drifting through space, still touching us, I feel something close to reverence, as if we are bathed in a light older than memory. And then there are the waves, the tremors, that travel not through air or water, but through space-time itself. Gravitational waves, ripples that stretch and compress everything in their path, created by massive objects spiraling together. When black holes collide, or neutron stars merge, the universe shivers, and those shivers pass through us. We cannot feel them, but our detectors can. It means that the cosmos is not silent after all. It hums, it vibrates, it sings in frequencies too deep for human senses. These waves are astonishing because they allow us to observe the universe without relying on light. They are like hearing the heartbeat of the cosmos directly, without the filter of stars or dust. And each detection gives us a glimpse of events we could never see. Collisions hidden behind gas clouds, explosions buried in darkness, transformations that leave no light behind. But not all cosmic messengers are waves or bursts of radiation. Some are ancient wanderers, comets, drifting slowly through the solar system like frozen relics. They carry chemical signatures from the early days of planetary formation, icy fossils containing material older than Earth. And when they fall toward the sun and begin to shine with vaporized ice, it's like watching a time capsule unclasp a lid. You can almost imagine them whispering stories from a time before life existed, when the solar system was only dust and chaos. And well, every year, Earth passes through trails left behind by these comets, and those trails ignite above us as meteor showers, little streaks of light that flare briefly and vanish. Some people see them as wishes, others as signs. But in truth, they are the remains of ancient bodies brushing past our world, burning up in a final flash. They remind us that space is not static, that Earth is always moving, always passing through cosmic debris fields like a traveler walking through drifting snow. Yet sometimes, the universe offers more than fleeting showers. Sometimes it delivers collisions, planetary impacts that reshape entire worlds. Giant worlds crashing into each other, mountains vaporized in an instant, atmospheres blown away, moons created from debris. Even Earth bears the memory of such violence. Our moon, according to one of the most accepted theories, may have formed from a colossal collision billions of years ago when a Mars-sized body struck the early Earth. And I suppose that realization, that worlds are shaped by violent beginnings, gives our planet a kind of fragility we rarely acknowledge. We walk on the cooled skin of an ancient wound, and the cosmos continues to orchestrate such collisions elsewhere, silently sculpting new landscapes across billions of miles. You know, the more we explore these cosmic phenomena, bursts, waves, fossils, showers, collisions, the more we begin to sense that the universe is both artist and archivist. It creates beauty in moments of catastrophe and preserves memory in drifting fragments of ancient ice. And perhaps this duality is what makes the cosmos feel so profoundly alive. It breathes, it erupts, it remembers. But as we drift from one cosmic phenomenon to the next, a question forms gently in the back of our minds. If the universe is filled with such violence, such motion, such continual transformation, how fragile must life be to survive within it? And yet, life has survived. It has found ways to adapt to Earth's shifting climates, its changing atmosphere, its cosmic threats. And humans, curious, restless humans, have even dared to leave the planet, to float above its oceans and mountains, to build stations in orbit, to walk on the surface of the moon. It's as though, after studying the storms and signals of the cosmos, the next step is obvious. We must ask how humans have ventured into that cosmic environment, what it means for fragile biological bodies to travel beyond Earth's embrace, what challenges await those who drift through microgravity, and how our species is learning, slowly, awkwardly, to live beyond its birthplace. And so, as we turn our attention from the fireworks of cosmic phenomena to the soft glow of human ambition, the next chapter opens quietly before us, the era of space travel, where our species begins tentatively to step into the vast, dark sea it has spent millennia observing. Well, you see, after wandering through the cosmic storms and ancient echoes of the universe, something shifts inside us. The scale of everything, the bursts of gamma light, the trembling waves of space-time, the icy fossils drifting through the dark, makes our own existence feel impossibly small. And yet, paradoxically, it is in this moment of smallness that something deeply human begins to glow. A curiosity, a restlessness, a desire not only to observe the universe from afar, but to step into it. And so the story turns, gently but inevitably, toward us. toward human beings who looked up at the sky and felt an ache so profound that they eventually built machines to escape gravity's pull. Machines that carried them beyond the thin blue shell of Earth's atmosphere and into the vast, silent ocean above. You know, when humans first set foot on the moon, it was more than an achievement of engineering. It was a moment when a fragile species declared, quietly but unmistakably, "We belong to the cosmos, too." You can imagine that scene. Dust untouched for billions of years, stirred by the imprint of a human boot. A flag barely moving in the vacuum. A world without wind receiving visitors for the very first time. And the astonishing part is not that we succeeded, but that we dared to try in the first place. And that journey didn't end there. Humans built a station, a home that drifts above Earth, orbiting every 90 minutes. A place where the sun rises and sets 16 times a day. Where astronauts float from room to room like swimmers drifting in an invisible ocean. The International Space Station is, in a quiet way, the first outpost of humanity in space. A fragile structure assembled piece by piece in orbit, held together by bolts, solar panels, and the shared hope of many nations. And being there does something strange to the human body. Without the familiar pull of gravity, astronauts grow taller. Not dramatically, but noticeably. Spines decompress, vertebrae stretch, and the body lengthens like a plant reaching for light. For a few months in orbit, a person becomes a slightly different version of themselves, shaped by the absence of weight. But well, this gentleness comes with a price. Bones weaken, muscles soften. The human body, designed over millions of years to push against the earth beneath its feet, begins to forget how to fight gravity at all. Astronauts exercise constantly, pulling against resistance machines, trying to remind their bodies that they still need strength. You see, living in space forces humans to negotiate with their own biology. It reveals how tightly life is bound to the environment in which it evolved. Bones require pressure, muscles require strain. Even the heart, that quiet drum of existence, grows weaker as it no longer needs to push blood upward against Earth's pull. Space is beautiful, yes, but it is indifferent to our survival. It asks us to adapt, or it will slowly unmake us. Even food becomes a challenge. Without gravity, crumbs float, liquids drift into spheres. A simple sip of water becomes a delicate dance between surface tension and caution. So astronauts eat foods engineered to behave predictably, soft textures, sealed packets, meals that will not scatter into electrical systems. It reminds us that every mundane moment assumed on Earth becomes a small puzzle in orbit. And yet, despite all these obstacles, humans continue to climb outward. Not because it is easy or profitable or comfortable, but because of that ancient longing, because the sky keeps calling. In recent years, the dream of space tourism has stepped from science fiction into early reality. People without scientific training are beginning to experience weightlessness, to see Earth from above, to feel, even for a few minutes, that delicate moment when the world curves beneath them and the cosmos opens above like an infinite cathedral. And you know, perhaps this is the real start of humanity's long future in space, not explorers alone, but ordinary people touching the edges of the universe. It is clumsy, expensive, imperfect, but it is a beginning, a quiet declaration that our species is learning, step by trembling step, to loosen gravity's embrace. But as we imagine these journeys outward, something deeper stirs again. Because traveling through space is not only about moving bodies, it is about moving perception. When astronauts look down at Earth, they often describe the same thing: a fragile blue sphere wrapped in darkness, borders invisible, conflicts small, life delicate. That view changes them. It makes the universe feel larger and humanity feel unified, at least for a moment. And well, this shift in perception opens the door to another question, one as old as wonder itself. If space travel allows us to see Earth differently, then what other truths might reveal themselves as we continue our journey deeper into the cosmos? What might we notice not just with our eyes, but with our senses, our instruments, our interpretations of reality? Because beyond the journeys of people, beyond rockets and stations and drifting satellites, lies a realm even more elusive. A realm where light behaves strangely, where sound becomes a metaphor instead of a vibration, where the universe communicates not in words or waves of air, but in electromagnetic whispers and invisible radiation. And so, as we leave behind the soft hum of human ambition and drift into the strange, sensory world of space itself, the next chapter opens like a curtain drawing back, inviting us to explore how the universe speaks in silence and shines in wavelengths we cannot see. Well, you see, as soon as we drift away from the soft human presence of space travelers and their fragile footsteps beyond Earth, the universe quiets itself again. It invites us not to look at people moving through space, but to listen, to sense the cosmos the way it senses itself. And, this is where things become beautifully strange, because space, for all its grandeur, is almost entirely silent. Not metaphorically, literally. There is no air to carry sound, no medium for vibrations to travel from source to ear. If you screamed beside a drifting comet, the only thing that would hear you is your own shaking chest. And that's the thing. Silence in space isn't emptiness. It's a kind of profound stillness, an ancient hush that has existed since the universe cooled from its fiery birth. A silence so deep, it feels almost sacred. You know, astronauts often describe an odd sensation when looking at the cosmos from orbit. The overwhelming quiet of it all, like watching a grand opera with the sound turned off. Exploding stars, colliding galaxies, rushing jets of plasma, all of it unfolds in pure, majestic silence. But even if sound cannot travel, the universe is far from mute. It speaks in light, and every star, every galaxy, every cloud of gas emits its own unique signature. Each star shines with a slightly different color, revealing its temperature, age, and composition. Hot stars glow blue-white, radiating fierce, intense energy. Cooler stars drift into warm oranges and deep reds. And, when you truly think about it, starlight is a kind of language, a coded message that has traveled across unfathomable distances to reach your eyes. Yet there is a haunting truth hidden inside that glow. Some of the light we see from distant stars began its journey so long ago that the stars themselves may no longer exist. They could have collapsed into neutron stars, expanded into giants, or faded into white dwarfs, while their final photons continued to race toward us. So, in a way, when we look at the night sky, we are not seeing the universe as it is, but as it was. We are reading a cosmic history book written in rays of light. And, well, humans have learned to enhance that light, to stretch it, color it, magnify it, so we can better understand the stories it carries. Many astronomical images are not displayed in their natural colors. Instead, scientists enhance the hues to reveal details the human eye cannot detect. Shock waves around stars, chemical signatures in nebulae, the faint glow of early galaxies. These colors are not lies, they are translations. The universe speaks in wavelengths, and sometimes we must amplify its voice to hear what it's saying. Because most of the cosmos is invisible to our eyes, we see only a tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, a narrow window between infrared and ultraviolet. Beyond that window lies a vast realm of radiation we cannot perceive directly. Microwaves, X-rays, gamma rays, radio waves. Entire cosmic dramas unfold in these wavelengths, unseen by human senses. And so, humans built machines that can see what we cannot. Telescopes that look in X-rays, which reveal the hot, violent regions around black holes and neutron stars. Telescopes that listen to radio waves, letting us map the structure of galaxies and detect whispers of ancient cosmic events. Telescopes that observe infrared light, showing us stars being born inside clouds of dust where visible light cannot escape. You see, each wavelength opens a new layer of the universe. The cosmos is not a single picture, it is a stack of realities, each revealed by a different kind of light. And by piecing these realities together, we begin to understand the universe not as a simple field of stars, but as a living, breathing structure of energy and matter in constant flux. And sometimes when we combine all these layers, the universe begins to reveal truths so subtle, so delicate, that we almost feel guilty uncovering them, like reading someone's diary without permission. But the cosmos doesn't mind. It has been shining for billions of years, waiting patiently for curious beings like us to decode its messages. And, if we step back and breathe in the enormity of it all, we begin to recognize that light isn't just illumination, it's memory. It carries the story of the universe across the void. Each photon is a traveler, a witness. It tells us what atoms were present in a star, what temperature the universe once held, whether a distant galaxy is moving toward us or away. Light is the universe's autobiography, written in color and wavelength. But this chapter, this exploration of the universe through silence and light, naturally leads us toward something even more profound. Because understanding how we perceive the universe invites us to ask how the universe will evolve long after our telescopes dim and our instruments fall silent. If space is quiet and stars speak in fading tones, what does the future hold for a cosmos that is continually expanding, cooling, and transforming? And so, as the last wavelengths drift softly across our senses, the universe seems to guide us toward its distant horizon, toward predictions, possibilities, and the ultimate fate of everything that ever was. A future written in expansion, in the death of stars, in the quiet separation of galaxies, and in mysteries we have not yet found words for. It is time, then, to step gently into the next chapter, where we listen not to what the universe is now, but to what it is becoming. Well, you see, when we step quietly from the realm of light and silence into the question of the universe's future, something in the tone of the cosmos changes. It grows softer, more reflective, almost elegiac, as though the universe itself is aware of its own aging, its own unfolding destiny. And, perhaps this is the moment when our curiosity deepens into something more personal, because asking about the future of the universe is, in a quiet way, asking about the future of ourselves, our world, our story, our place in a cosmos that moves with or without us. And that's the thing. The universe is not static. It is not frozen in the form we see today. It is expanding continuously, relentlessly, almost impatiently. Galaxies drift apart like lanterns carried on separate currents. Space itself stretches, pulling everything outward in all directions. Even as we speak, the universe grows a little larger, like a breath that never ends. You know, when astronomers first realized this expansion was happening, it must have felt like stepping onto a floor that suddenly starts moving. The cosmos was not simply big, it was becoming bigger. And as they measured that expansion more carefully, they found something even stranger. It was speeding up. The universe is not just dilating, it is accelerating, as though pushed by an unseen hand. And this acceleration will continue far beyond the timescales that shape human history, or even planetary history. Given enough time, galaxies that we see today will drift so far apart that their light will never reach each other again. The Milky Way will become an island of stars surrounded by unimaginable darkness. Perhaps that is the most haunting aspect of cosmic expansion. It promises a future where isolation becomes the dominant feature of the universe, where the night sky grows emptier, quieter, more distant, where only the closest galactic neighbors remain visible, and eventually, not even those. And, this ever-widening distance forces us to confront another truth. Stars do not live forever. Even our sun, which feels eternal from the perspective of human lifetimes, is living on borrowed fuel. One day, it will exhaust the hydrogen that burns brightly in its core. Its light will soften. Its body will expand into a red giant, possibly swallowing Mercury and Venus, perhaps brushing against Earth's orbit. Imagine that. The sun, that gentle guardian of warmth and time, growing enormous and crimson, painting the sky with light both beautiful and deadly. Earth's oceans would boil away, its surface would crack. Whatever remains of humanity, if humanity still exists, will have long fled. And well, after this fiery expansion, the sun will release its outer layers into space, creating a delicate cloud of glowing gas, a planetary nebula, a final act of quiet beauty before the star collapses inward into a white dwarf, a cooling ember of what once was. And one day, even that ember will fade. When you let this truth settle, you begin to sense how tender our moment in the cosmos truly is. Earth exists in a narrow slice of time, when conditions allow oceans, forests, consciousness. We are living in a temporary intersection between cosmic birth and cosmic decay, and yet, the death of the sun is not the end of the story. It is just one event in a universe filled with stars that come and go like sparks in a long, dark wind. Other stars will form, burn, explode, collapse. Entire galaxies will continue their slow dance. But the larger fate of the universe is shaped by something deeper, something woven into the very fabric of space-time. Because as dark energy continues to accelerate the expansion of the universe, galaxies will grow more and more distant. Their light will stretch into longer wavelengths, fading into invisibility. The universe will cool. Stars will die faster than new ones form. Over vast stretches of time, far beyond anything comparable to the age of Earth, the cosmos will shift into a twilight phase, where starlight becomes rare and the great engines of energy begin to sputter. And well, one day, Earth itself will be gone. Whether consumed by the sun's expansion or slowly eroded by time after the sun has faded, it will become part of cosmic history, its stones and oceans and memories drifting back into the dark. There is a quiet ache in this realization, but also a kind of beauty, because nothing in the universe remains fixed. Everything transforms. Everything returns to silence eventually. Yet the universe, in its vast generosity, offers more than a single possible future. Some physicists propose that our cosmos might be one of many, parallel universes branching like an infinite forest, each with different laws, different outcomes, different versions of reality. If this is true, then our universe's story is not the only one. It is just one thread in a tapestry too large for any mind to fully imagine. Perhaps in another universe, the expansion slows. In another, time folds back on itself. In yet another, consciousness arises in forms we cannot conceive. And thinking about these parallel possibilities does something interesting to the mind. It loosens the rigidity of our expectations. It reminds us that reality may not be a single line, but a vast web, and that our existence, our consciousness, is part of something far more intricate than the story of one universe alone. But even if our universe has no siblings, its own path leads eventually toward a quiet end, a cold end, a future where expansion has carried everything so far apart that no heat, no light, no structure remains. Protons decay, black holes evaporate, stars are long gone. The universe becomes a thin, cold mist of subatomic particles drifting through infinite darkness. Time stretches toward a horizon where nothing meaningful can happen anymore. A heat death, a cosmic dusk. And while this ending feels somber, perhaps even lonely, it also reveals something profound. The universe is not a static sculpture. It is a story, a long, unfolding narrative with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And we, tiny beings flickering briefly in the great stretch of cosmic time, are part of that story. We are made of matter forged in ancient stars. We are shaped by the expansion of space and the flow of time. Our atoms, our thoughts, our questions, they are all temporary expressions of cosmic evolution. But here's the quiet miracle. Even though the universe may drift toward cold stillness, we are alive now, conscious now, curious now. In this fleeting interval, we get to look back at the universe's beginning, observe its middle, and imagine its end. The cosmos may one day go silent, but today it sings in starlight and gravitational waves, in nebulae and comets. in the gentle hum of our own awareness. And you see, this awareness leads us somewhere unexpected, to the final collection of truths that stretch beyond even the universe's future. Facts that pull together everything we've learned, everything we've wondered, everything we've dared to imagine. They take us from black holes to gamma bursts, from wandering planets to the strange bending of light, from neutron stars to the question of consciousness itself. Because after contemplating the life and death of the universe, the next natural step is to ask, what deeper mysteries remain? What strange objects, unseen forces, and hidden laws continue to shape reality beyond our current understanding? What lies in the uncharted territory between physics and philosophy, between matter and meaning? And so, with the quiet weight of the universe's future lingering in our thoughts, we turn toward the final chapter, where the boundaries of knowledge stretch thin, and the remaining facts invite us to step beyond certainty into wonder. Well, you see, as we stand here at the quiet edge of all these wonders, after journeying through galaxies and star forges, drifting beside planets of ice and fire, listening to the soft hum of radiation older than memory, touching the invisible scaffolding of dark matter, and peering gently into the distant, trembling future of the cosmos, there's a certain stillness that settles around us, a stillness not of emptiness, but of understanding, of reverence, as though the universe itself has finished a long story and now watches to see what we will do with it. And, perhaps that's the tender truth at the heart of all this exploration. The universe tells us its story not to overwhelm us, but to remind us that we belong to it, that we are woven into the same cosmic fabric as galaxies and comets and collapsing stars, that the atoms in our blood are the ashes of ancient suns. And once you realize that, once it truly settles in your chest, the night sky stops feeling distant. It becomes a kind of mirror, reflecting not our features, but our origins, our shared heritage with everything that has ever burned or drifted or breathed in this vast cosmic ocean. You know, when we look back over this long journey, it becomes clear that the universe has been whispering to us in layers. First, it showed us its scale, almost teasingly, as if to say, "You think you understand size? Try this." Then it drew us inward, into the spiraling architecture of our own Milky Way, revealing how even our enormous home is just one glowing grain in an infinite dusk. From there, it led us to planets, strange worlds twisting gravity and chemistry into forms that stretch imagination itself. And well, after we wandered through the behaviors of stars, after time bent and slowed and folded under the weight of gravity, after black holes pulled at the edges of our comprehension, after we considered life blooming in alien seas or drifting between worlds like microscopic pilgrims, we found ourselves staring into shadows, into the invisible matter and energy that sculpt everything. And finally, as the universe continued to expand around us, the future opened like a long, dim corridor, full of both melancholy and wonder. Yet here we are, at the end of this particular path, still breathing, still curious, still holding on to questions that the universe has not answered, and maybe never will. And I suppose that's part of the beauty. Knowledge does not end wonder, it deepens it. Every fact we uncovered became a doorway, not a wall. Every certainty made room for a new possibility. The more we learned, the more mysterious the cosmos became. Perhaps that is the grandest secret of all. The universe is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a companion to think with, a landscape for the mind, a cathedral whose architecture is written in gravity and light. And you know, somewhere in that vastness, in the glow of a galaxy millions of light years away, or the dark ocean beneath an icy moon, something might be living. Something might be asking its own questions. Something might be wondering if it is alone. And if consciousness is indeed a cosmic phenomenon, if minds flicker into existence wherever matter becomes complex enough, then perhaps the universe is not silent at all. Perhaps it is full of unheard languages, unimagined cultures, stories unfolding on worlds we may never see, But even if we remain alone in the galactic night, even if Earth is the only cradle of thought, the universe has still given us the extraordinary gift of awareness. We are, at least for this brief moment in cosmic time, a way for the cosmos to experience itself, to reflect, to ask, to dream. And well, when you think about the future of the universe, all those drifting galaxies, dying stars, evaporating black holes, it's tempting to feel small, to imagine ourselves as fragile sparks flickering out long before the cosmic story ends. But perhaps smallness is not something to fear. Perhaps it is something to embrace, because our smallness is what allows the universe to feel enormous. Our brief lives make time feel precious. Our limited senses make discovery meaningful. In a way, the universe's vastness gives our existence texture, contrast, a sense of scale that turns every human heartbeat into something oddly miraculous. And maybe that's why we look up at night, not to feel insignificant, but to feel connected, to feel the quiet pull of something larger than ourselves, something ancient and ongoing, something that reminds us that we are part of a narrative billions of years in the making. And as we stand here, still metaphorically drifting through stardust, still listening to echoes from the beginning of time, it becomes clear that the real treasure isn't the information we've gathered, but the perspective it has given us. A perspective wide enough to hold galaxies, delicate enough to treasure a single moment, humble enough to admit how much we do not know. You see, when you allow the universe to broaden your inner world, everything changes. The things that once felt heavy begin to feel lighter. The boundaries that once felt rigid soften. The questions that once seemed frightening become invitations instead. And the night sky, which used to be just a scattering of stars, becomes a story unfolding above you, written in light, older than imagination. But perhaps the most important realization is this: the universe is unfinished. Not only in the sense that it continues to expand and evolve, but in the sense that our understanding of it remains incomplete. And it will always remain incomplete. There will always be mysteries just beyond reach, questions without answers, horizons we have not yet approached. And I suppose that is the quiet flame that keeps curiosity alive. We are explorers not because we expect to reach the end, but because exploring is part of who we are. We ask questions because to ask is to be human. We wonder because wonder is the closest thing we have to a compass pointing toward meaning. And well, as we lean gently away from this grand tour, a new curiosity begins to shimmer at the edges of thought. We have explored the large, the luminous, the violent, the invisible. We have looked forward and backward through time. Yet there remains a final region where the universe becomes more intimate, more philosophical, the extended mysteries that lie beyond even the known catalog of cosmic facts, the secrets hiding in rotating black holes, the dense hearts of neutron stars, the ripples of time itself, the strange bending of light, the wandering planets without suns, the quantum whispers shaping every particle, and the oldest question of all: what consciousness truly is in a universe made of matter and silence. And so, as this chapter draws a breath, not closing, but pausing, we find ourselves standing at the threshold of those remaining mysteries. A threshold where physics meets philosophy, where matter meets meaning, and where the universe seems to lean a little closer, waiting to see what we will ask next. Because the story of the cosmos does not end here, not for the universe, and not for us.